Hey rugby fans, before we get into what is potentially the most explosive and controversial opinion to come out of English rugby in recent months, I need you to do something really important. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, now is the absolute perfect time to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications because we are about to dive deep into a debate that is splitting the rugby world right down the middle. We're talking about the future of English rugby, we're talking about national identity, we're talking about whether England should be copying the Springboks or forging their own path forward. This is the kind of content that sparks massive discussions in the comments, and trust me, you do not want to miss a single video as this story develops throughout the season. And while you're down there, smash that like button. It genuinely helps us reach more rugby fans like yourself, and it lets us know that you want more of this hard-hitting analysis and opinion pieces that get people talking. Seriously, it takes 1 second, costs you nothing, and it makes a massive difference to the channel. So go ahead, subscribe, hit the bell, drop a like, and maybe even drop a comment letting me know whether you agree or disagree with what we're about to discuss, because I have a feeling this one is going to get people fired up. Alright, with that sorted, let's dive into the absolute bombshell that former England fullback Ben Foden has just dropped in an interview with Boyle Sports, and believe me, this is gonna ruffle some feathers. Ben Foden, who represented England from 2009 through to 2013, has come out swinging with some seriously strong opinions about the current state of English rugby and more specifically about the direction the national team should be heading. And at the heart of his argument is a pretty provocative statement. England, and in fact all Tier 1 nations, need to stop trying to copy the South African blueprint. Now, before anyone jumps down my throat in the comments, let's actually break down what Foden is saying here, because there's a lot more nuance to this than just a simple hot take. The Springboks are currently sitting at the top of the rugby world. They're the reigning world champions, they've won back-to-back World Cups, and their style of rugby, while not always the most aesthetically pleasing to everyone, is undeniably effective. Rassie Erasmus has revolutionized the game with innovations like the 7-1 bench split, affectionately known as the bomb squad, where South Africa load their bench with 7 forwards and just 1 back. The idea is simple but brilliant. You absolutely brutalize the opposition pack for 50 or 60 minutes with your starting forwards, and then you bring on what is essentially a completely fresh pack to finish the job while the opposition is exhausted. It's worked spectacularly for the Springboks, helping them dominate physically and grind down teams that might have been competitive in the first half. But here's where Foden's argument really starts to bite. Just because it works for South Africa doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone else. And this is where the concept of rugby DNA comes into play. Foden's main point, and it's actually a pretty compelling one when you think about it, is that success in international rugby is rarely found through imitation. Every major rugby nation has developed its own unique style of play over decades, sometimes over a century. That style is shaped by the country's culture, by the physical characteristics of the players that nation produces, by the club structures beneath the international setup, and by the rugby philosophies that have been passed down through generations. New Zealand, for example, has always been about pace, skill, and offloading. The All Blacks play rugby that is expansive, attacking, and relentless. Their players, from props to wingers, are expected to be able to handle the ball, make offloads, and keep the game moving at breakneck speed. That's the New Zealand way, and it's been honed and perfected over more than 100 years of rugby history. France, on the other hand, plays with flair and unpredictability. The French can go from structured and methodical to absolutely chaotic and brilliant within the same phase of play. It's part of what makes them so dangerous and so exciting to watch. And South Africa, well, the Springboks have always been about physicality, forward dominance, and an unyielding defensive structure. They want to win the battle up front and use that platform to suffocate opponents. So where does that leave England? Foden's argument is that England has lost touch with what made them successful in the first place. He points to his experiences under former coach Stuart Lancaster, and this is where it gets really interesting. Foden says it used to drive him absolutely mad when the England team would be shown endless clips of New Zealand or South Africa during training camps, with the coaching staff essentially saying, "This is how we want to play." And his response to that, which he's now voicing publicly, was always, "Why are we watching the teams that we play and saying this is how we want to play?" His point is that England should be the team that everyone else is watching. England should be setting the standard, not chasing it. Now, there's a lot to unpack there because it speaks to a deeper issue within English rugby. There's been a real identity crisis over the last decade or so. After England won the World Cup in 2003 with that iconic Martin Johnson-led side, there seemed to be a clear understanding of what English rugby was about. It was about forward dominance, it was about a rock-solid set piece, it was about kicking for territory and pressuring teams in their own half, and it was about that old-fashioned English grit and determination. But somewhere along the way, that identity got muddled. Different coaches came in with different philosophies. Stuart Lancaster wanted to build a young, dynamic team that could compete with the All Blacks at their own game. Eddie Jones came in and won a Grand Slam with a very English style, but then seemed to spend the next few years experimenting with everything under the sun. And now, Steve Borthwick is trying to figure out what this England team should look like. Foden specifically calls out the danger of trying to adopt the bomb squad approach. He says, and he's not wrong about this, that the 7-1 split isn't a plug-and-play strategy that any team can just implement. It works for South Africa because they have the depth of forward talent to pull it off. They can name 7 forwards on the bench who would probably start for most other international teams. They have players who are comfortable playing multiple positions in the pack, which gives them flexibility. And crucially, their entire game plan is built around forward dominance. Everything the Springboks do is designed to set up that forward battle. Their kicking game, their defensive structure, their attacking patterns, it's all geared toward winning the physical confrontation. But England doesn't have that same depth of forward talent, at least not to the same degree, and more importantly, English players aren't necessarily suited to that style of rugby. England has traditionally produced world-class backs, creative fly-halves, powerful centres, and elusive wingers. Think about players like Johnny Wilkinson, Will Greenwood, Jason Robinson, and in the modern era, players like Owen Farrell, Marcus Smith, and Henry Slade. These are players who can unlock defenses with skill and creativity. So why would you build your entire game plan around a forward-dominated, attritional style that doesn't maximize the strengths of your best players? This brings us to another really interesting point that Foden makes. He actually holds up France as the team that should be the blueprint for excitement in world rugby. He compares the current French team to the 2010 New Zealand team, which is high praise indeed because that All Black side was absolutely sensational. Foden talks about the French style being a feast for the eyes, full of offloads and flair, creating a spectacle that the rest of the world wants to see succeed. And you know what? He's absolutely right about that. France under Fabien Galtier has rediscovered what makes French rugby special. They're playing with confidence, with creativity, and with a willingness to take risks. They're not trying to be New Zealand, they're not trying to be South Africa, they're being France, and it's working brilliantly for them. Now, Foden's critique extends beyond just tactical considerations. He talks about his experiences under Stuart Lancaster, and he paints a picture of a team that was constantly looking outward for validation and inspiration rather than looking inward. He says he used to think you want the world to be watching you, not looking at what everyone else is doing. And that's actually a really powerful statement because it gets to the heart of what confidence and self-belief look like in elite sport. The great teams, the truly dominant teams, they set the agenda. They don't follow trends, they create them. The All Blacks in their pomp didn't care what anyone else was doing because they were too busy perfecting their own game. The Springboks under Erasmus aren't copying anyone else's tactics. They're doubling down on what they do best and doing it better than anyone else possibly could.